So we're in Learning Unit 5. We've covered the first sort of half of it, which was to do kind of with bounded and unbounded media, that sort of thing. And now what I want to do is, I just want to go through just the last couple of pages here, which deal more with the networking, let's say the nodes and servers and that are connected to it more than, say, the cabling part of it. Okay, so a lot of networks run in one of two ways. So they're talking here about a client-server network. That's very, very common. We see that pretty much everywhere. In fact, as soon as you open up your browser is a web client, and you're connecting to somewhere on the internet, which is a web server. So you've got a server that serves a whole. And if you open your email client, it doesn't matter what you're using, Outlook or Thunderbird or in any of these mail clients, you're connecting to somewhere in the world with a mail server that's actually servicing that service. So client server is pretty much everywhere. What you do get, that if it's not client server, the sort of opposite of that, not really opposite, but something that's different to that is peer-to-peer. An example of peer-to-peer, it's not in the book here, but I'll tell you now, something like say, for instance, a torrent. If you are torrenting files, there's no sort of, you can think of a server as kind of being the boss node. Okay, but when it comes to torrents, there's no such real thing as a boss node. You kind of have an aggregator that's just keeping the addresses of other peers that are literally just seeding the torrent that you want. So there is sort of a server that really is just telling you where to go and fetch the file. It's not hosting the file. That's how people get away with torrents, because they don't physically have the file. The file is on thousands of other PCs around the world, and they just hand out pieces of that file. So it gets sort of as a cluster. So it's more of a peer-to-peer setup. So torrenting is an example of not of client server, of a peer-to-peer setup. But here we're talking about client server networking. And you can see they mention a couple of different types of servers there, which are very, very common. A file server, we all know what that is. It's just really think of it as just being a big monstrous hard drive somewhere on your network where you can store files. Dropbox would be an example of a cloud-based version of a file server, I guess. You could have a server that's acting as a print server. It has printers connected to it. And so if you want to print a document, your PC connects to the print server, sends the job to there, and the print server then controls the printers. That's a very, very common thing on a network. Web servers, much more of an internet thing. Email servers, we already covered that. Proxy server, it's a little bit different. A proxy server is kind of it would sit at sort of at the edge of your network. And if you want to cruise the web, for example, that proxy server, if you want to go to Google, your browser connects to the proxy server. The proxy server goes and gets the Google web page, and then the proxy server gives it to you. So a proxy, as its name sort of suggests, sits in between you and kind of where you want to go. They have one of those on the school network. So that's how they stop you from going to websites they don't want you to go to. When your web browser connects to their server, their proxy server, and it's that fetches the web pages that you want. That's if you're on the school network. So those are different types. Those are different types of servers. There are others. Back in the day, you would have like a fax server, for example. You'd have a server with a modem in it. And if you wanted to send a fax to somebody straight off your PC without even having a fax machine, you would sort of almost like email it to that fax server, and the fax server would take it and would send the fax out for you. Not as popular nowadays, but I have no doubt they are still around though. 5.8.1 shows you the difference between local servers and cloud servers. For example, at the school, you might have your mail server might be local on your network. So incoming email would come and sit there, whereas web servers, they'd be out in the cloud somewhere. So that's just the difference. Cloud servers will be out somewhere in the world. You don't care where they are. You just connect to an IP address and off you go. And there's a on that page, and you can see obviously stuff that's inside the router. To the left-hand side of the router, that's your network, and you can see you've got printers and computers and servers in there. And then on the right-hand side of the router, on the outbound side, you can see there's your ISP or your internet service provider, and the cloud, i.e. the rest of the world. And in the second picture you've got there, you can just see that there's other servers in the cloud. Okay, so 5.8.2, they talk about the role of a client. The role of the client is literally just to connect to the server. It's kind of the front end for whatever service that you're using. So a web server that's holding all the web page nice and pretty where they need to be and that sort of thing. But the server itself is just holding text. Okay, so it's just HTML on the server, but it's your browser that makes the page look nice and pretty for you. So that's the purpose of the client, is really to connect to a server and to act as a front end for you. Network access control 5.9. That's another feature that you'll find on a network. Once again, like Gr10, you have this as well. This is sort of the firewall that stops you from doing most things. And that network, into a network, you will have a profile, and that profile will tell you, or it'll tell the network what you're allowed to do, what your roles are, what your permissions are. Which printers you're allowed to print to, are you allowed to access the internet or not? If you are allowed to access the internet, what can you access on the internet? What can't you access on the internet? Also, can you access the Play Store, or can you upgrade Windows even? It's all this sort of thing is built into the network access control, or the profile that you get when you log on to a network. So it's just to do really with authentication, and what your permissions and your roles are on a network. In 5.10, they talk about the advantages of using computer networks. A lot of these questions that you get in the exams, a lot of them you'll be able to kind of, they're kind of logical. You know, you can sit there and you can think up reasons to what, if someone had say to you, well, look, what is the advantages of a computer network? I'm sure you could sit there and make up some stuff. Obviously it allows you to share resources, so you can, if you've only got one printer, like 30 of you could use one printer, so you can save money by just having the one printer. You can have one internet connection that everybody uses. So you can see there, you can share your communication channel. You can share files, printer and resource sharing. Centralization. This is becoming a bit more of a thing even now within Gr10, with cloud-based software like this, for instance, this Teams that we are using. That's hosted by Microsoft. This isn't hosted by Gr10. Gr10 just buy this, so we just kind of pay for it on an as-need basis. In fact, the system that we're using right now is based out of Western Europe somewhere. So I think we probably from Germany or somewhere like that, that's where we're using this particular service from. So that's what network applications are. They allow you to have, instead of actually installing Word and Excel and PowerPoint and everything on your PC, you can just use it browser-based. So you can have sort of centralized network applications. You can have, obviously, file storage. You can share data. That's a big thing. That's that sort of thing we're doing right now with Teams, where you can sort of all access stuff and we can collaborate. And this is kind of where things are going. Okay, so we've got the sharing of data here. The beauty about that, as you can see right now, is we don't even all have to be in the same meeting at the same time. Some guys can't make it, so I just leave a recording there for them, and then they can consume it as they want to later on. You can just go through their data transfer, productivity. I've just mentioned, you know, you can work flexi time, like almost like we are now. As long as you do the work, it doesn't matter when your boss will say to you, oh, I need this work done and I need it done by this particular date. He's not going to tell you when you actually have to do it. As long as you hand it in by that time, he's going to be happy. Okay, so a lot of companies work flexi time like that. Some of the disadvantages of a computer network, obviously, it's not just a free lunch. Okay, and one of the big problems is security. People hack in, and obviously, if you're sharing, especially if it's sensitive stuff. I mean, you can imagine if you were SpaceX, and you had the plans for your Dragon spacecraft or something, and then what happens is the Chinese or the North Koreans or somebody hacks into your network and they steal all your blueprints. Then boom, they're just going to go and build, a spaceship of their own using all the technology that you've spent millions and millions and millions of dollars, probably billions of dollars developing. They're just going to steal it all. So security is a big thing. Obviously, spreading of computer viruses. There is a bit of a cost involved, although I'm not too sure cost would be a big disadvantage of a network, because I think there's also cost savings in that you're not going to end up having to buy everybody a printer, because you can just have one or two printers that everybody shares. Okay, so I think it depends on how you think about cost. Yes, sure, cost is a factor, but cost could also be a plus as well, I think myself. And then there's obviously the dependency on central servers. For example, if you've got a single print server and that print server bombs out, then nobody can print, because nobody's got printers. They're all sharing the same printers that are on the server that's now bombed out. So dependency on the sort of, you end up getting individual points of possible problems. Okay, so like what happens at the school from time to time, we are completely reliant on one internet connection. So if Vodacom go down, then boom, job done. So that's a bit of a bummer. So dependency on central servers, that's an issue. Okay, that's about it. We're up to the end of Learning Unit 5.